The Prime Minister was up bright and early this morning, saying that his focus is now to get flights off the ground and that nothing will stand in his way after the government's Rwanda bill finally passed Parliament after 2 years, very late last night.
Labour brands the plan a gimmick, says it is unworkable, and we're joined by the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. Very good morning to you,
Morning.
Yvette Cooper.
Good morning, Susanna. Good morning, Richard.
Morning.
When I interviewed your colleague, Jonathan Ashworth, back in January, I asked whether you would scrap the plan if you became the next party of government. He spent the best part of about 5 minutes failing to satisfactorily explain whether you would or not, couldn't give a clear answer, insisted it's not going to work. Can you give us a clear answer?
We will replace it. The Rwanda scheme is an extortionately expensive gimmick, and it's not a serious plan to tackle the dangerous boat crossings that are both putting lives at risk but undermining our border security. So that's why we'll replace it. The scheme's costing the taxpayer around £500 million for just 300 asylum seekers to be sent to Rwanda. That is less than 1% of asylum seekers. There's no plan for the 99%. And it's effectively around £2 million per person being spent. That money should be being spent on boosting our border security, on proper cross-border policing, and also on fixing the chaos in the asylum system instead.
Yeah. OK, so you won't even let it have a chance to work then?
Well, the problem is that nobody thinks it's going to work. The Home Secretary himself has described this as
until it's in sorry, can't use that word on breakfast television. That's
sorry, Susanna.
But we don't know yet, do we? We've been discussing it for 2 years. Everybody's pointed out the flaws with it. The courts have had an issue with it. It's finally gone through. Is it not incumbent on you, as the Shadow Home Secretary, as somebody who might want to save some money, to work out if it does work before you pledge to replace it?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, nobody does think it'll work, not just the current Home Secretary. The former Home Secretary has also said this is just token flights. The former Immigration Minister has said they're just trying to do symbolic flights before a general election. In fact, even the Prime Minister has said that, you know, when he was Chancellor, tried to stop the scheme. It's also because this is just about 300 people, and more people than that arrive in a weekend. And so this is really not addressing the whole of the problem. And it's costing huge amounts of money up front. So the first thing that the government is going to do, having passed the bill, is not all of the things that were in the papers about sending out letters or sorting out detention or any of those things. The first thing they're going to do is write a £50 million additional cheque to Rwanda for nothing, not for anybody actually arriving, and that will take the money up to nearly £300 million already sent to Rwanda for a scheme that so far has sent more Home Secretaries than asylum seekers to Rwanda. And that's the problem. We should be saving that money and putting that now into boosting our border security. Sorry, Richard.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. You talk about lack of support and you make quotations there, but we know that this policy has quite widespread support in the public with the voters, including quite a few Labour voters. You said this morning you'll rip it up, you won't give it a chance to work. Are you not worried about alienating some core Labour support?
Well, I think what people across the country want is to see something done about these boat crossings that are undermining our border security,
that's exactly my point. That's precisely my point. They will see it as something being done, and many of them think it's a good idea.
Well, and an awful lot of people also think, actually, this is just a con, it's just a gimmick, and it's distracting everybody from the real serious action that we need. So we do need action to boost our border security.
What about the people who don't think it's a con and don't think it's a gimmick and otherwise would vote Labour, who... I mean, we've got messages from them this morning saying that they're Labour supporters, and if you do rip up this plan, they won't vote for you.
I think there are a lot of Labour supporters who want strong action on border security and who want strong action to fix the chaos in the asylum system. But we do have a responsibility to make sure that we can come up with a workable plan that will make a difference and that doesn't just throw away taxpayers' money in repeated cheques to Rwanda, to the Rwandan government, for something that ends up just affecting 1% of asylum seekers when there's no plan for the 99%. And then you've got these huge problems with asylum hotels, you've got the huge problem with the criminal gangs just continuing to operate with impunity along the channel. That is dangerous. That is undermining our border security.
OK,
so the things that we would do
Yes, I was going to say, because you say that you're not going to give it a chance to work, you would rip it up immediately, but you're going to replace it. I mean, there's a huge amount of money that's already been invested, so that's just written off by a potential Labour government.
And then already written off,
and
Susanna,
then that's right.
By the way they've done it. The Conservatives have written that money off because it's not bought us anything.
And so what are you going to spend money on instead?
So we would save money. We wouldn't be writing these additional cheques to Rwanda now. And remember, every time they send, as soon as they send 300 people, they will have to write another cheque for 120 million. So that money we would put into border security. First of all, new cross-border police to work actually in Europe to go after the criminal gangs and their networks and supply chains so that we stop the boats reaching the French coast in the first place, so that you have the proper cooperation to go after these networks, which have expanded and grown and proliferated over the last 5 years. We would have new counter-terror style powers to help them go after the gangs. We would also have new intelligence sharing agreements that, again, have been ripped up in recent years. We need to actually make sure that we can get that. We would also have a fast-track scheme for safe countries to help clear the backlog, end asylum hotel use, and crucially, we would have a new returns and enforcement unit because the returns of failed asylum cases have just plummeted. They've dropped by 50% since the Conservatives came to power. If you don't have tough enforcement, if you don't have the rules properly enforced, then there's no credibility for the whole system. We've got to restore that credibility and that enforcement in place.
Only 2 or 3 minutes left for this interview, so let's turn to the predicament that your Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, is currently in. By a quirk of Commons procedure, tomorrow she will be doing PMQs. And we just wonder how prepared she is for the inevitable attack she's going to get for this ongoing row about her 2 homes. Are you confident that she'll see off the flak? Because it's going to be heavy incoming flak tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Angela is a brilliant deputy leader of the Labour Party. She's a fantastic campaigner. She's working immensely hard on all sorts of issues, including making sure that there are proper rights and protections for working people who haven't had a fair deal. Look, Angela welcomes the opportunity from the investigations to be able to set the record straight and to be able to deal with those issues. But in terms of her work in Parliament, she is going to carry on doing the things that she's always done, which is holding a failing government to account, because it is badly failing the people of this country. And I think tomorrow will be about the people of this country, not the kinds of attacks from the Conservatives we've seen. Well,
her boss, Keir Starmer, he's not doing PMQs tomorrow, so that would give him a chance to look at the evidence which she says that she has presented and that other people within the Labour Party say they've looked at, but nobody will say what they've actually seen. And Keir Starmer hasn't looked at it himself. Why won't your leader look at the evidence that she says clears her name? Why won't he just look at it?
Well, this is a matter with the police. You've got the HMRC, the proper authorities. I mean, the thing Angela has done exactly the right thing by taking proper legal and tax advice and been really clear that she's acted in accordance with it.
He's a former boss of the DPP. Is he not curious himself as leader to have a look at it so he can then say with complete authority, yeah, I've seen the paperwork, it's fine, she's in the clear?
But I think that's a matter for the police and the HMRC, and as Angela's been really clear, that she has acted in accordance with the advice that she's had. So
it's not a matter for the leader of the Labour Party?
No, I think this is something... for him. This is something that happened, 10 years ago, before Angela was an MP, around the sale of her council house, and Angela has been very clear both about following the advice that she's received and also welcoming the opportunity for the proper authorities, the police and the HMRC.
Is Keir Starmer, is he frightened to look at it because of what he might see? Because that's the message that's coming over.
No, Richard, I think what Keir Starmer's doing is focusing today on tackling rural crime, which is going up much faster than in urban areas. No, but it is also about saying this is what Keir Starmer's focusing on. So Keir and I are going to be talking today about rural crime. That was actually one of the reasons I was doing interviews this morning, was to also be able to talk about our plans to cut rural crime by having more neighbourhood patrols in rural areas and to be able to have stronger laws.
Have you seen the paper? Have you seen the paper? Have you seen the paperwork? Have you seen the paperwork?
But
have you seen the paperwork?
No, I said no.
You haven't.
I wouldn't expect to, because I think that's about the advice to someone about their personal finances, and we don't just routinely publish personal finance information in this country. And it is right that there should be proper authorities should be able to look at it.
I was suggesting that you look at it. I wasn't suggesting you publish it, although that is another argument. I was simply suggesting that maybe you, somebody quite senior, let's say the Labour Party leader, should have a look at it. And it seems improbable, the reasons that you're giving. Oh, well, it's a matter for the police, it's a matter for HMRC. It's also a matter for the leader of the Labour Party. If it's a problem for the deputy leader and her image, it's a problem for the leader and his.
Yeah, but I think I'd just say this, Richard. I don't go around looking at the tax and legal advice that my colleagues have, and I don't think you do either. I understand why the Conservatives want to focus on this. There is an investigation underway, and Angie welcomes that. But I understand why the Conservatives want to focus on that. I think most people across the country actually want to know, what's the difference going to be for their cost of living? What's the difference going to be made on our border security? What's the difference going to be made about the National Health Service? Those are the issues. Let's leave it to the HMRC, to the police. Let's leave it to Angela to be able to do the things that she's been very clear she welcomes the chance to be able to do. And let's the rest of us talk about the things that really matter to people across the country who are still struggling to pay their energy bills or their mortgages, who are still worrying about not being able to get an NHS appointment, and not worrying too about our border security that we were talking about at the beginning.
If we were interviewing you from your office this morning, Yvette Cooper, would you be flying the St George's flag with enthusiasm? It is St George's Day, and your leader has written to all general election candidates urging you to mark it with enthusiasm. We have you in our studio there at Millbank this morning, where there are no flags. Would it be different in your constituency office?
So, Susanna, I can wish you a very happy St George's Day. In Pontefract, we very often fly the St George's flag from Pontefract Castle. I hope it is flying there today. As you say, we're in Parliament today. And actually, in our area, we have very often put up the St George's flags and the bunting. And yesterday, actually, we were at St George's Park seeing where the England team train as well. So I can very happily and very enthusiastically wish you and everybody else watching a happy St George's Day today.
No flinching at the St George's flag where you are.
We've had no, totally. We've often had the bunting up and things as well.
All right, let the flags fly. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Yvette Cooper, thanks very much indeed.